Good morning, I'm Kathryn Delaney. Welcome to Roots of Alchemy. This is your daily tarot reading for August 21st, 2020. Let's go ahead and take a look at today's cards. The first card that we drew today is the Nine of Swords, reversed. When this card is upright, it definitely has a little bit of a scary feeling to it. It's got an overwhelmingly dark energy, and as you can see, the character or person that is in this card is in a state of overwhelm, sleeplessness, and a pretty intense state of suffering. The swords are associated with mental energy and our thoughts, and what's happening here is this person is really in a state of overwhelm in what they're thinking about, what they have on their mind. They're in a state of denial of sorts, and it is bringing a state of sleeplessness and some circumstances that aren't necessarily enjoyable. But keep in mind that this card is reversed today. So what that brings to my attention is that perhaps we're starting to take a look and get some clarity around what we focus on. So when we look out at the day, if you take a moment to just consider your day and where you spend your time mentally, what you actually focus on, you may be able to reflect throughout your life that depending on where you are in life, emotionally, physically, maybe even in your environment, that can have a great effect on how you think about things and how you perceive the world. We forget, though, a lot of times that when we can get a very almost like obsessive focus on things that are negative or quote unquote perceived as negative in our life, or things that are troublesome or causing us worry, when we get hyper focused on those things, it tends to create more of that and have us see more of that, because it's almost as if the attention is looking out for more examples of that. So if we look, for instance, if you can take a step back from possibly everything that could be worrying you in this moment and causing you concern and causing you you know, inner strife. If you take a couple steps back from that, you know, and look at the tapestry of your life in a different way, there's a lot of other things happening in your life aside from that red knot that's, you know, stealing your attention, and that's really calling to your attention in such a strong way. It's as if we are starting to realize that that's almost a spell of sorts that can really consume us, and it does consume us when the card is upright. But when it's in reverse, you know, this person is, I feel, starting to see things in a new way and starting to at least reconsider if it's really useful to, you know, hyper focus on all of these different thoughts that really are bringing this person down. It's important to realize that this is a number 9 card, so it is looking at, you know, a beginning to almost like a crystallization. If it were a 10, for instance, it would be crystallizing this behavior to where, you know, the person is just like sucked into the mental dialogue completely and isolating themselves. But with it being a 9, you know, it hasn't crystallized yet. So if we can see where we can be bound by our thoughts, then perhaps we can start to unbind ourselves by letting go of some of these swords, you know, and get clarity, get back to the single sword, right? And clarity of our focus and what we want to put our energy on. This second card that we have here today is the Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands is a card that's associated with Aries energy, in that it is a cardinal fire ruled card, which means that there's a speaking to a sense of development of the self from, you know, the little self, the kid-like nature that says, I want this, and I really, you know, that initial fire, that initial spark of motivation of I want, and to more of a sense of self in a more essential way of like growing into a new sense of self and to a new sense of purpose. And so this is, you know, speaking to a sense of self-development in some ways, you know, like how do we want to carry our will? What do we carry it for? What do we ultimately stand for overall? And this leads us to the third card, which is the Six of Wands. And the Six of Wands is, you know, a character who is moving on to new things based on their old successes, right? And their old overcomings, their own triumphs. So what's happening here, you know, is perhaps the way that we've seen things in the past is starting to be reevaluated, and we can see how being bound by the way that we see things and what we are overcome by mentally is really, it limits us from really interacting in life. And we're starting to see that in a new way. And there's a turning over of that. And then we have, you know, a sense of self that is evolving from, you know, a more, you know, like I guess if you were to look at like a child who throws a temper tantrum around what they can't get and what they want, you know, and they're like throwing a fit about it. This is the kid that's kind of like, okay, well, I guess if I can't have it now, I'll at least have it later. Or if I can't have it, there's a reason for it and it's out of my control, so why get upset about it anyway? Let's move on to the next thing, right? Like a different sense of self as far as like identification and like what we get identified with and what we see as actually realizing is being called to us in a new way. And then this is moving forward. So in moving forward, you know, we have to remember that we, you know, everything that we've done in our lives is like a tool that we've put in our toolbox. And so while you may not, you know, for instance, like some people may have just finished college, right? And they went to college for a very specific thing. And then a few years down the road, they may not be in that specific field for that thing, for that specific course of study, but they may have learned a skill set or developed some interest while they were in college that actually benefits them later, right? So there's some moving forward based on past successes, past things that you've learned, past things that you've overcome, and this is definitely a beneficial card. So there is a transition happening today where there is almost like a surrender in some ways to what's going on, in realizing that, like, you know, when you get pushed downstream, you have to, whenever you land, you have to look around and see what is accessible to you there, rather than getting upset about what you lost upstream, if that makes sense. So yeah, there is a turning point today where we kind of evolve and grow into a new sense of, you know what, I actually have a pretty amazing skill set. I can move this towards something that really, you know, lights up my heart and motivates me to move in a new direction. And I'm going to take all of my skill set and tools that I've gathered along the way with me, and I will have the support that I need to move in that direction. So that is the Daily Tarot for August 21st, 2020. I am reading from a deck of cards that I hand drew a few years ago. I also read with this same deck when I read for people who would like either a personal tarot reading or an astrology reading. Typically in a 1-hour reading, I'll combine the two if you happen to know your exact time of birth. We can draw up a natal chart, look at where the astrological transits are happening for you right now, and then I'll do a 12 card reading for you rather than a 3 card reading. And that would be around a 1 hour reading. Of course, if you'd like to do a half-hour reading, we can, and still look at your astrology, we can just do the 3 card reading for you as well. But I do have my information in the detailed description of the reading below if you'd like to reach out to me to get a reading. And there's also information there regarding my body care and therapeutic products, as well as my blog, because I do a lot of different things. So feel free to reach out. I hope you have a blessed day, and I would love to hear about your day and your transformations in the comments below. If you do have a big shift and have a release of, you know, that mental uh, confinement that we've been stuck in, and actually feel a sense of encouragement and a new fire in your heart and in your life that motivates you to move in a new direction, even if it is unknown. It's pretty exciting to discover what can be out there. So I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you again tomorrow.